Hello, I'm Helen Wickstead, and I'm here to talk with you today about a new project called Recycle Archaeology. Every year, archaeologists throw away thousands of excavated finds that are not able to find homes in museums. Recycle Archaeology creates new uses for these deselected materials so they do not end up in landfill. We aim to help more people engage with artefacts in ways that matter to them. My talk today explores the ways that deselected materials matter in archaeology and beyond. Recycle archaeology encourages new relationships towards deselected archaeological finds that change the ways these objects matter. I shall explain these transformations using the work of Bruno Latour, who discusses the creation of knowledge using the concepts of matters of fact and matters of concern. Developing on Latour's ideas, I use Maria Puig de Bellacasa's concept of matters of care to investigate how Recycle Archaeology's workshops reconstitute deselected materials from being matters of fact towards becoming matters of care. I will begin with some background to the Recycle Archaeology project. Next, I'll discuss what I mean by matters of fact and matters of care and how these relate to Recycle Archaeology's work. Lastly, I'll use the words of our participants to consider how deselected materials matter to them. What are deselected materials? The Museum of London defines them as finds usually left on site or finds that can be discarded after recording and after advice from the appropriate specialist. The list below includes some of the commonest categories, including building materials and structural ironwork, much of which comprises large structures left on site. Smaller objects, including unregistered brick and tile, industrial byproducts, shell and unstratified finds, are often discarded after the excavation has ended through selection processes. The Chartered Institute for Archaeologists Archive Selection Toolkit specifies that methods for disposal of deselected materials should be agreed in advance as part of a selection strategy. But there's a lack of creative methods by which archaeologists are able to dispose of deselected materials. Examples given in the toolkit suggest reburial and landfill, but no other possibilities are presented. It's difficult to find data specifying how many deselected finds have gone to landfill. However, it's possible to make an estimate based on the numbers of finds entering museums. The Museum of London estimates that London alone produces around 3,000 boxes of archaeological finds every year. These boxes are not all the same size. However, if we take the most common shoebox style box, the average from a recent assemblage of 41 boxes was 328 individual items per box. Extrapolating from that would result in over 900,000 items per year just from London. Even if only 5% of this total was deselected, that would be over 49,000 items deselected every year. Recycle Archaeology currently has around 12,200 finds in our store, all of which was about to go into skips when I collected them. It's reasonable to say that thousands of finds are deselected every year in the UK. Most are either reburied on site or sent to landfill because there are few other options for disposal available to archaeologists. Because most archaeological projects in the UK are funded through construction, deselected materials are construction waste. According to the UK Green Building Council, construction produces more waste than any other sector in the UK economy, 62% of all waste. Deselected materials are archaeology's unique contribution to the 5 million tonnes of construction waste that goes unrecycled every year in the UK. Recycle Archaeology aims to preserve and share the values of deselected archaeological materials. To discover new social uses for deselected materials suggested by our participants, and to raise awareness of recycling and circular economies in past and present societies. Our work reconstitutes deselected materials from being matters of fact towards becoming matters of care. Historians of science have shown how a certain way of configuring matters of fact emerged from the 16th century onwards, through what Latour describes as an amazingly narrow, specialised type of scenography and a very precise repertoire of attitude and attention. The technologies configuring matters of fact included encyclopediae of excavated artefacts and museum collections produced by 16th and 17th century antiquarians, which are the historical originators of archaeological finds reports. Matters of fact were indisputable, obstinate, simply there. At the same time as being mute, they always had the last word, because facts, after all, speak for themselves, don't they? The amazing thing about matters of fact was that although they were material, they did not matter a bit. It was the symbolic truth in matters of fact that was valued. Thus, matters of fact can be discarded once they've been scientifically recorded. An archaeology that reproduces matters of fact results in a narrow understanding of the values of excavated artefacts. As matters of fact, deselected artefacts can be thrown away once recorded, despite the fact their values as facts within excavation reports might be only one highly specialised way in which these artefacts might matter. Latour suggests an alternative approach towards scientific and technological processes as reproducing matters of concern. Matters of concern are a gathering incorporating relations between people, concepts and things. They're not given in advance, but actively kept up, cared for, accompanied, restored, duplicated and saved. While matters of fact did not matter, matters of concern matter for some people who have to be specified, and for whom they are the source of an intense interest and a redirected attention. Matters of fact were there whether you like it or not, but matters of concern have to be liked. It is Bellacassa's development of Latour's conception of matters of concern that I want to use today to explore the materialities of deselected artefacts. For Bellacassa, care is everything that we do to maintain, continue, and repair our world so that we can live in it as well as possible. That world includes our bodies, ourselves, and our environment, all that we seek to interweave in a complex, life-sustaining web. The concept of care is useful because it emphasises the work involved in maintaining materialities. Care, in Bellacassa's words, contains a notion of doing that concern lacks. Care is an everyday labour of maintenance. We must take care of things in order to remain responsible for their becomings. An emphasis on care is particularly useful for working with marginalised objects, such as those that have been discarded or deselected. Reframing deselected materials as matters of care problematises the neglect of caring relationalities in an assemblage, giving marginalised things a voice. The word care derives from the Latin cura, from which we also get the word to curate. By loaning deselected artefacts to student curators from Kingston University's Museum and Gallery Studies course, Recycle Archaeology offered students opportunities to practice the everyday care of artefacts by handling, conserving, packaging and transporting them. Deselected materials offer a freedom of access that is very difficult to achieve with accessioned museum artefacts. Our student curators created over 30 object handling sessions for primary and junior schools, producing classroom museum boxes like this one.
Well, we've got some bones from animals that didn't have a home in a museum, and they came from farms. Most of them are cow bones or sheep bones, but one of them are from a deer.
Fantastic. Do you want to show us a few of the bones? Just so...
That's a chicken bone.
Okay.
Bone. This, we think it's from a cow.
Okay.
A cow. Where's that horn? Maybe a giant tooth from some sort of kind. We guessed that was a whale, but they said it was either from a pig or something.
Fantastic.
We think this might be from a deer.
Okay.
Because these were not accessioned museum objects, teachers and school children could exhibit them themselves and share them with other people. Long Ditton St Mary's Junior School created a fantastic Night at the Museum exhibition across the whole school, attended by over 1,000 family members who were able to touch the artefacts and discuss them with the child curators. Workshops, such as our regular pub archaeology night, stimulate a dialogue around how participants would like to use deselected materials. For example, one of our arts and crafts workshops at Kingston Museum was based around a discussion where participants could choose which objects they wanted to recycle. The point of this session was not just to make a community mosaic, but to encourage the makers to decide for themselves which items to keep in our stores for reuse and which to recycle into an artwork displayed at the museum. Our unstratified unworked animal bone has been reused to make a teaching collection for life sciences in the anatomy lab at Kingston University. Supervised by Dr. Layla Renshaw, 2 paid student interns are conserving and interpreting this material at the moment so that it can travel to schools in the future. In my concluding section, I will use some of the text produced by Recycle Archaeology's participants to discuss how Recycle Archaeology's deselected materials matter. Recycle Archaeology's workshops have taken place in universities, schools, pubs and museums. One of our most crucial workshop technologies was created by student curator Marley Trelaw. Marley made these postcards. Using Marley's postcard idea, we asked our participants to send us a postcard saying what they would like to do with deselected archaeological materials. We've received 43 postcards so far, with 57 separate contributions. 30% of the postcards responded to relationships that had formed between our participants and particular artefacts. For example, we had 3 postcards that were sent to a particular oyster shell used by our student curator Marco in his object handling sessions. This postcard says, "Oyster, how you wee?" A good question that Marco was subsequently able to answer. 26% of postcards suggested a specific mode of reuse, such as recrafting clay pipe stems into jewellery, making vases, mosaics, tiles or tools. The largest number of postcard suggestions, 31%, suggested using finds for learning experiences in schools, children's homes, vet schools, and even in a dedicated Recycle Archaeology bus. For example, here our participant suggests each school could have their very own mini-museum, and if any child finds an artefact, they could put it in there. 14% of postcards use the word museum to describe the facility they envisaged, suggesting museums were still seen as the natural destination for archaeological finds. These museums were non-traditional, however. They were very much hands-on, and they emphasised the access our participants would have to the items in collection. Only one postcard mentioned selling deselected artefacts. Overall, our participants were strongly in favour of reuse in public organisations such as museums and schools, or giving objects away to people in need. Our correspondents resisted commodification, emphasising the ways in which artefacts could be used to create gift relationships. They repeatedly suggested artefacts should be given away to people with less power in society. They also liked the idea that they themselves could give artefacts to a centre that would redistribute them. Sometimes they called this a museum. In doing this, our participants proposed a circular economy, an alternative economics to that of capitalist accumulation and unlimited growth. They re-envisioned archaeology and museums in ways that parallel the visions of degrowth discussed by Flexner, Zorzin, Morgan and MacDonald. I have introduced recycle archaeology and discussed how our work transforms deselected materials, reconfiguring them as matters of care. Treated as matters of fact, deselected materials are by definition marginalised and discarded. Once they become matters of care, this very weakness becomes their strength. Through their vulnerable, fragmentary and marginalised state, these objects allow our participants to revalue them and reimagine them as part of new relationships. As recuperated rubbish, the objects encourage caring relationalities that, in the words of Bella Casa, give marginalised things a voice. Reframing deselected materials as matters of care produces new possibilities for humans, artefacts, and environments.